For most of my life, I had crippling anxiety and seasonal depression and suicidal ideation, and I was a chronic people pleaser. I had absolutely no faith in life, no trust in my intuition, and now I am completely led by it. And this is the story of how that happened. I've spent most of my life in the dark as to what my gifts were. When people would talk about just follow your gifts and do what you've always were called to do as a child. And I just was always dumbfounded and like, what is wrong with me? What are my gifts? What did I do? I have no idea. But yeah, it makes sense now. It's come full circle. When I was a kid, I was about 4 years old. My parents and I and my brother, we lived in this house, and my family said it was haunted. But that's because souls were making themselves known. And when I would sleep in my parents' room, they had this open closet. And I would tell them in the middle of the night that I could see a gold man in the closet. And he was friendly and I liked him, but it freaked my parents out. They felt so uncomfortable by that. And of course I'm 4, so I don't remember what they said, but I believe that they were deterring me from talking about those things because it was, confronting and scary to them. But yeah, I didn't really see that as having a gift. I just was something that happened and something that I experienced. And when I was 5 years old, I started to have a lot of death happen in my family from 5 to 8. I had a couple of uncles pass away, my aunt, my great grandma, and I had no religious background. So I was experiencing a lot of death in a short amount of time at a young age and not having any way to process it. Not having a religious funnel, which I'm really grateful for now. But I intuitively just started, writing poetry. And I wrote about my uncles, and I was comparing them to saying that they were like the grass and the birds in the sky and the clouds. And I don't have any idea. Well, I know now, but at the time I didn't have any idea how I was coming to those conclusions. And my family was really stunned by the poetry and wondering how I came to understand that is what had happened when my uncles passed in this lifetime. But now I really see that as just being tapped in and having that gift. And when my uncle Nick passed away when I was in 4th grade, I remember seeing orbs for the first time in my backyard. And I felt so weird that I could see them. I knew what they were. I just knew. But I felt really ashamed because it felt like a weird thing. And I was afraid of getting in trouble and not being believed in or scaring people. So I didn't really share it a lot. And I didn't think it was anything special. And so my childhood in the beginning was very normal for the most part. But then when I became a teenager, my parents got divorced and my life made a complete 180. I went from having a fairly safe childhood to being in very dangerous situations, very traumatic situations on a constant basis. And having to become an adult really quickly. I had a younger brother. I have a younger brother who's 1 year and 2 weeks younger than me. And I, quickly became his parent. And so I had to sharpen my intuition a lot faster. And I, at the same time, had an intense distrust for people, for life, always feeling like the shoe was going to drop. And so I became very on edge and very protective and not having any sense of that there was something greater that was supporting me. Even though I had these experiences as a young kid, I just didn't have the foundation I thought I didn't have the foundation. I always have, and I've always been guided. But yeah, and so that really created a lot of people pleasing. I became a chronic people pleaser because I just wanted to be safe. I was feeling so unsafe, and my physical safety and my emotional safety were in jeopardy and were actually, used. And so I just wanted to please everyone at any cost, so that way I could be palatable and I wouldn't anger anyone or upset anyone or cause any sort of ruffle any feathers at all. And so because of that, I actually started hearing my intuition, because my intuition would be speaking to me when I would betray myself and I was choose other people. And whether it, was being in relationships and intimate sexual situations, or starting a business that I didn't want to start, but just because someone told me to. I would choose jobs because other people would tell me that that's what I should do. So from expressing to lifestyle to relationships to just job, career, I was doing everything from a place of survival and a place of, what do you think I should do? And because of that, like I said, I would hear my intuition telling me. I could start to hear it as its own being. It wasn't coming from my mind. It was this outside source. It was like receiving a telephone call from myself, from a higher self, a higher person, a higher place. And so, that was the beauty of it. It was very difficult to go through all of those experiences, but it was a really strong activation of my intuition, even though it's been a long process to fully listen to it. And there's been a lot of trial and error. And then during the pandemic, unrelated to the pandemic, that was my rock bottom. That was one of my rock bottoms. I've had a few of them. But I was helping my partner at the time, was with him for 8 years, and he came to me with struggling with sex and porn addiction. And so that just became a huge source of chronic illness and just a lot of mental illness that was happening for me, with having complex PTSD, suicidal ideation. I wasn't leaving the house. I wasn't talking to people. I would barely talk to my family or anyone. And I just became very, very isolated. And at that time, through the process of 2020 to 2022, every year, it was an intense experience of experiencing grief and trauma. In 2022, the most detrimental thing that I could have ever had fathomed for me happened. My grandma was like a mother to me. I consider her my mother, and she was the first person I ever saw when I was born. We had a very strong connection, and she passed away in February of 2022. And that was the catalyst of my rock bottom, and also the catalyst of me going on this huge transformation. I could see how I was being divinely guided in a stronger way than I'd ever noticed before. And so I was working at Amazon Flex, delivering packages out of my car, barely making any money in the summer heat in California, in LA. And I felt so stagnant in my life, and I didn't know what to do. I felt so stuck. And one of the shifts I had, remember walking down someone's sidewalk after I dropped off a package, and I kept hearing this voice, and it was telling me, it was like, Alex, 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 Alex. And I knew who it was. It was this woman that I had discovered on Instagram through one of my high school friends. And she is a life coach, Alex is. And so I just knew I needed to see her. I knew I needed to have a session with her or just talk to her. And I ended up doing that same day, booking a session, and then talking to her and saying yes to being one of her clients. But I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. And yeah, I also said yes that same week to going to a retreat in Colombia the following month with having no idea how to pay for it, any of it. And I ended up getting more money than both of those things that same week. And that's another story for later that I'll tell. But yeah, that cracked open this unraveling of my life, and then listening from my intuition and making these crazy choices that like logically didn't make sense to me, and I didn't have the evidence in my life for it, but that ended up working out perfectly. And it really just gave me this stronger sense and development of trusting my gifts and my intuition. And yeah, and then last year I discovered that I can communicate with my grandma and that she can tell me things. And it's just been, yeah, a really beautiful experience. It was so detrimental for me to know that I couldn't talk to her. I would even sleep with her in her bed when I would come and visit, because like we would just stay up all night talking. We just always wanted to talk to each other when we were together. So yeah, it's just been an amazing experience. And yeah, one aspect of this that also happened during the pandemic was, which I didn't realize that this would have so much meaning to me. But yeah, I was hospitalized 8 times in 2020, and the emergency room, the doctors could not figure out what was going on with me. I even saw a gastroenterologist, or however you say it. And yeah, they were not able to figure it out. And then I saw, through an intuitive journey, I saw a naturopathic doctor, and she changed my life and she helped heal me. And I remember first meeting with her, and she told me, she said, my goal is for you to see me at 3 times at tops in your life, because my goal is for you to heal and for you to heal yourself. And that was profound. And yeah, just later this year, I discovered another layer of meaning behind that, which I trust and know that we all have intuition and we all have soul guides. And yeah, so I'm really excited to share more of that. And yeah, just thank you for listening. Thank you for following along. I hope you follow along on my journey. And yeah, I'm excited to share more. Yeah, talk to you soon.